Aaron.
Here.
Why didn't you say it the first time I said Aaron?
Because it's pronounced Aaron.
You done messed up, Aaron.
Aaron is right here, everyone. Welcome back for more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. I have thought long and hard about where to enter this conversation. I saw so many people in the live chat thinking this was clickbait. This is not clickbait. And we're also not even really going to violate my channel rule that I have of not getting into any partisan politics stuff, because we're really not. I'm not breaking that rule tonight. And for the moderation for the chat tonight, what I want to do is, if you don't like what someone is saying in the live chat and you don't want to see it, just block that person. I'm going to ask my moderators not to block people for, normally on my videos, if people are just going on and on about partisan politics stuff, they'll get timed out or blocked. But for the purpose of tonight's chat, let's just let it be. Let's just block obvious spammers. So yeah, I've been staying away from this topic intentionally, far away from this topic intentionally. I'm a firm believer that if your audience doesn't come to you for politics, don't give them politics. I mean, I truly believe that. My channel is dedicated to exposing Scientology, doing my best to be David Miscavige's worst nightmare, which is not a zero-sum game. We can all be David Miscavige's worst nightmare. I just try to win in that game. And that doesn't change for tonight's video. So someone's in room guy says, can I be blocked? I'll tell you, as an ex-Scientologist, as someone who was raised in Scientology, it is so confusing to me to see Scientologists successfully pass themselves off as members of the conservative Christian family values wing of our nation's political establishment. And I am not a religious person in any way, shape, or form. So I'm not even being like, oh my God, as a religious person, I'm so offended that Scientologists have convinced religious people they're a part of them. That's not where I'm coming from at all. I'm not religious, nor was I when I was a Scientologist. I don't believe in God, nor did I when I was a Scientologist. And just almost now, as an ex-Scientologist and as an observer of what Scientologists are doing in the world and in the political world, I just really scratch my head that the wing of the United States political establishment that Scientology has worked on infiltrating has fallen for it. It just confuses the hell out of me. Also, some of the most well-known or famous Scientologists, I actually question whether most people know that these people are Scientologists, are also some of the people who have most successfully infiltrated what I guess I'm just going to describe as the Republican Party. Now, for whatever reason, Scientologists decided to get very political starting in 2016. And before that, I never hardly met a Scientologist who gave a good gosh darn about politics at all. I mean, L. Ron Hubbard pretty specifically said, don't worry about politics. The only thing you can ever fix this world with is Scientology, and all politicians are equally bad. And not because of their ideology, but because they're human. And the only people on this earth that are better than your average human is a Scientologist. Let me try to stick with my original train of thought. Greta Van Susteren is as high level of a Scientologist as you can get. Greta Van Susteren is a higher level Scientologist than Tom Cruise. Greta Van Susteren is OT8. Tom Cruise, I'm told, never finished OT7. Greta's husband, John Cole. Greta and John are two of the people who have infiltrated the conservative Christian family values Republican wing of this country. And I wonder what all of the conservative Christian family values Republicans would think of Greta Van Susteren and John Cole and Grant Cardone and Elena Cardone and Bob Duggan and Trish Duggan if they truly knew that these people that I just listed, who are all high-level Scientologists, these people all support an organization that doesn't believe in God, does not have any family values, is the opposite of that, is not pro-life, is not pro-military, and has a shuttle, a weekly shuttle that takes its clergy members to the abortion clinic for abortions. Now, one of the reasons I said I thought long and hard about how to do this video is because I have to approach this conversation in a way that makes it clear that I'm not saying that in order to be good, virtuous, or respectable, you have to be any of those things. You don't have to be religious. You don't have to be family values. You don't have to be pro-life. You don't have to be pro-gun. You don't have to be pro-military. It's just that Scientology is none of those things. And they've infiltrated a section of our political establishment that values those things. It's so weird. Okay, so why is the video called Let's Talk About Charlie Kirk and Scientology? Because I'll tell you what, I mean, the biggest Scientology huckster, fraudster of them all is Grant Cardone. And nobody has tried to piggyback and bandwagon off of what happened to Charlie Kirk the way Grant Cardone has. That was sort of the inspiration for my idea for the video this evening. And then while I was preparing for it, I couldn't even believe how much Grant Cardone has tried to lean into this thing. And by the way, the comments that I've asked George to help star for me in the chat this evening are ones that really have to do with questions about Scientology and this political subject in general. By the way, I'm not a registered member of any political party. I'm not even a registered member of the Independent Party. I'm no party affiliation. And how many people in the Republican Party do you think actually understand that Scientology does not believe in a God? And that the clergy members of Scientology who get pregnant are bussed to the abortion clinic every week. Okay, why do I mention the abortion issue? Because Charlie Kirk was so pro-life. He said that if his own daughter got raped as a child and got pregnant, he would not, I don't know if he said want her or let her get an abortion. Now, personally, I disagree with that. I mean, I couldn't disagree with that more. I'm pro-choice. I mean, I just am. And yet here you have, just for an example, you know, Charlie Kirk, I'm sorry, Grant Cardone pays all these guys millions and millions of dollars to appear on stage with him. But here you have recently, actually, I got to double check the timestamp, or I mean the date stamp. I don't know quite how recent this is. Meaning it's within the last couple of years. It's within the last year. Here you have Grant Cardone managing to get the ultra Christian, conservative, family values, Republican poster boy on stage with him. Grant Cardone has donated tens of millions of dollars to an organization that shuttles its clergy members to the abortion clinic every week because they're not allowed to have children. I mean, do you think Charlie Kirk knew that about Scientology, or that Grant Cardone has donated so much money to Scientology, that Grant Cardone is as higher of a level Scientologist than Tom Cruise is? Also, Let's look at Grant Cardone's Twitter feed here for a second. I'm going to give you examples of some of the things that I'm talking about. Oh, because the real point or the subject or the topic of tonight's discussion is, do you think the conservative family values Christian wing of U.S. politics would be as welcoming and tolerant of Scientology and its leading Scientologists if they really knew what Scientology stood for and what they believed and how they behave and what Scientologists actually think of religion? And I can't stress this enough. I am not religious. I am not saying, oh, in order to be good or virtuous, you have to be religious. I'm not religious. But I'm also not pretending that I am. And Scientologists do. And I just can't believe so many people fall for it. Do you think Charlie Kirk would care that Greta Van Susteren and Grant Cardone massively financially support an organization that shuttles its clergy members to the abortion clinic every week? Do you think it would matter? I'm curious what you guys think about that. Okay, I said we were going to look at Grant Cardone's Twitter feed real quick. Yeah, I mean, check this out. Grant Cardone, Erica, I will help you. Charlie inspired me, and I considered him a friend. Do you want to know the only way Charlie Kirk inspired Grant Cardone? Because Charlie Kirk had more social media followers than Grant did. And that's how Grant measures the value of a human life. How many social media followers do you have? Let's see. This is unbelievable. So literally days after the guy's assassinated, on a stage in Las Vegas in front of 12,000 people, I asked Charlie Kirk, what does the term 10X mean to you? The answer he gave me was one of the best I've ever heard. So like literally he's literally using Charlie Kirk's assassination to promote his own brand. I mean, it doesn't get much worse than Grant Cardone. It just does not get much worse than Grant Cardone. Okay, let's see. There was something else here. Faith, family, friends. Holy shit, you guys. Faith, family, friends. Faith. First of all, Scientologists can't tell you fast enough, at least when they're not on camera, how Scientology is not a faith. In fact, I saw an amazing video. I got to make a note of this, actually. I saw someone infiltrate an organization. I saw just in the last day or two, I saw yet another one of these Scientology infiltration videos where some young people were talking to the staff member at the reception desk of a Scientology org. I really wonder if it was Detroit. This is a note for later. Look for the clip of the Scientologist saying Scientology is not a faith from the last couple days. Faith, family, friends. Scientologists can't tell you fast enough how Scientology is not a faith. Why do Scientologists care to explain to you why Scientology is not a faith and it's an applied religious philosophy? Because Scientologists think faith is absurd and ridiculous. L. Ron Hubbard mocked faiths. L. Ron Hubbard mocked religion. L. Ron Hubbard mocked Christianity. L. Ron Hubbard ridiculed Jesus. I'm not kidding. He said Jesus was just an angry pedophile. Not a joke. The historical Jesus, like meaning I didn't go to school, guys. I grew up in a cult. So I can't quite recall whether historians agree that a man named Jesus Christ actually existed or whether that's up for debate or whether people agree he existed, and the only thing that's up for debate is whether he's the son of God. I can tell you that L. Ron Hubbard said the historical Jesus was a pedophile with a bad temper. He said a lover of young boys with a particularly foul temper. And for sure, L. Ron Hubbard said that the religious books, like the Bible and the Quran, and just the religious stories of the world's mainstream religions, are fictional stories that we as a society have been programmed to develop over the years. Programmed by who? Good question. I'm glad you asked. The evil alien psychiatrists who are running the implant stations on the far side of the moon and Venus and Saturn and shit, who are the ones responsible for keeping us trapped on this prison planet lifetime after lifetime. Yes, those evil alien psychiatrists, literally psychiatrists from the planet Farsec, are the ones who implanted the beings who occupy the bodies on Earth with these electronic, like post-hypnotic suggestions, to come up with these fantastic religious tales to act as an opiate of the masses to control the population of Earth. This is what L. Ron Hubbard actually said about religion, that it's all bullshit. And that Scientology isn't actually a religion, it's an applied philosophy, but we're going to pretend it's a religion for tax purposes. This is all going back to Grant Cardone's tweet. Faith, family, friends. Scientologists don't believe in faith, but they will lie to you and tell you that they do. Let's not even mention the Scientology cross. Why does the Scientology cross exist? Why is the cross a symbol of Scientology? To trick people into thinking that it has something to do with Christianity. That's why. It's literally now a Scientologist will tell you. The Scientologist will tell you the 8-pointed Scientology cross represents the 8 dynamics as laid out by Scientology. And you're like, no, that's an explanation for why the Scientology cross has 8 points. That's not an explanation for why it's a cross to begin with. It could be, an 8-pointed anything. It could be an 8-sided anything. It could literally just be an 8. Like, the reason Scientology uses a cross is to trick people into thinking it has something to do with traditional religion or Christianity. Period. End of story. Faith, family, friends. When Joy Vila, when she was still in Science, Joy Vila was a Christian before she became a Scientologist. She actually continued to be a Christian while she was in Scientology, and then got in trouble for continuing to pray and believe. Like, no one is more anti-Christianity than a Scientologist. And you have to understand, I'm going to repeat myself a lot. It's not like I'm saying, and that's what makes them bad. I don't care if someone's anti-Christianity. I don't care if someone's anti-religion. I'm not pro-religion. I'm not pro anything, but I'm also not anti-it. Do you know what I mean? But Scientologists aren't for it as well. And they pretend that they are, and they're lying about it. Okay, faith, family, friends. Especially he's saying this in the wake of Charlie Kirk, right? What's the one thing Charlie Kirk was known for? Like, other than his specific beliefs, what was Charlie Kirk's main feature? His whole thing was pretty much he would talk to anybody. I mean, regardless of what he believed, he also believed that you should be able to talk to anybody. That is literally the opposite of what Scientology believes. Scientology prohibits its members from having any contact or communication whatsoever with any former members. I have never met or spoken or communicated with Grant Cardone in any way, shape, or form. I have never tweeted at him. He has me blocked on Twitter. He has me blocked on Twitter because Scientology maintains a list of people Scientologists are not allowed to speak with. And I'm on that list because I'm an ex-Scientologist. And also because I do a lot of videos exposing Scientology's abuse. But so faith, family, friends, a Scientologist will cut off a lifelong friend in an instant if that lifelong friend leaves Scientology. Right? Okay, let me see if there's anything else here on this Twitter feed that I thought was particularly relevant to this, the subject of this video. Where's the rifle? Hey, Grant, where's Shelly? Yeah. All right, I'll leave that alone for right now. Okay, so I've explained how Scientology is not religious. Scientology believes all the world's religions. It's one thing if you're like a Christian and you believe it's the only real religion, but the other religions are also religions, but they're just the false religions. Scientology believes all religions are false, and also that Scientology is not a faith, and they do not believe in God. That's the other thing. Scientologists will lie to your face that Scientologists can believe in God, do believe in God, that you can be a Christian and a Scientologist, you can be a Christian and a practicing Jew or Muslim. It's literally false. It's just not true. No family values. What does that mean? In what ways do Scientology, are they actually against family values? Well, I'll tell you, for starters, Scientologists don't believe in children. Scientologists don't believe in the family unit or the value of a family unit because Scientologists believe we are all immortal spiritual beings who've been around for 60 plus trillion years. We're currently imprisoned on planet Earth in a cycle of endless birth and death, of living lifetime after lifetime in new bodies, because this is a prison planet. And we were sent here from other planets in the Galactic Confederacy to serve out the rest of our existence here on the prison of Earth. And the best way to keep the prisoners from trying to revolt and get off the planet is to cause the prisoners to believe that they only live one lifetime. And so every time one of our bodies dies, we're pre-programmed, like spiritually, with like post-hypnotic suggestion, to report into the Between Lives implant station, where the evil alien psychiatrist will wipe your spirit memory and shoot you back down, beam you back down to Earth to pick up a new baby body and live a new lifetime. It's like the Matrix, except instead of little pods where you're harnessed for your thermal energy, the body is your pod. The body is your pod, and you believe you are a body, and you believe you live one lifetime. And if you're an atheist, you live one lifetime and you turn into dirt. And if you're religious, you live one lifetime and then you go to heaven or hell. But you sure aren't trying to figure out how to get off the planet, unless you're Elon Musk. Okay. So because we're all immortal spiritual beings who are just serving out, 90-year prison sentences at a time in our body, in our meat bags called bodies, beings don't give birth to beings. Bodies give birth to bodies. And so if you're living, if I'm living this lifetime in this body identified as Aaron, and I have a child, Scientology would tell me, well, that's not my child because I'm a being and in my child is a being, but I didn't give birth to that being. And so if your child leaves Scientology and Scientology tells you to disconnect from the child, it's not a child. It's just a body. You might not have ever even known that being before, right? It's the opposite of family values because it devalues the family unit. And, the evidence of that is displayed at every level of Scientology. Public staff and Sea Org. I mean, look at Tom Cruise. He disowned his only biological daughter. Now, his biological daughter isn't more his daughter than his adopted daughter and his adopted son. But look how carelessly he threw Surrey away, as long as it was no longer convenient to Scientology. Look at David Miscavige and Shelley Miscavige. David Miscavige literally banished his wife, Shelley, to a remote confidential Scientology base. And whether they're married still or not married still, reports are that he hasn't even seen her in 20 years. Family values. That's the guy who's running the whole damn show. Look at L. Ron Hubbard. L. Ron Hubbard let his wife, Mary Sue Hubbard, take the fall for Scientology's infiltration of the federal government, let her get sent away to prison, and never saw her again. I think when did those people go to prison? Was it 77? Was it 78? Was it 79? L. Ron Hubbard didn't die until 1986. For the last 6, 7, 8 years of L. Ron Hubbard's life, he didn't see his wife once. Even in Scientology C organization, when you have married couples, very seldom are those married couples even kept working on the same base together, much less in the same organization. Because you can have multiple Scientology organizations on one Scientology base. And there's no priority whatsoever to make sure that married couples in Scientology are able to spend time with each other and work with each other and that kind of stuff. So Scientology is literally the opposite of family values. Okay, the opposite of pro-life. Now, make no mistake, like I said, I'm firmly pro-choice, but so is Scientology. Not only pro-choice, they pretty much insist on it. If you are a C organization member and you get pregnant, they tell you you need to get an abortion. Now, you are allowed to say no, and you are allowed to leave the Sea Org. But the pressure to get an abortion, particularly in the past, had been so high that one ex-Sea Org member who was who had been a Sea Org member, obviously, was a minor, was married, got pregnant, did not want to get an abortion, was pressured to get an abortion, had so much pressure applied to her to get an abortion that after that the doc, like the evidence that she did not want to get an abortion was her ethics files and her auditing files were so chock full of the evidence of how much trauma she was subjected to convince her to get an abortion, which she did, that when she left Scientology, she was able to sue Scientology for having been forced to get an abortion. Now, contrast that with Charlie Kirk, who said if his daughter was raped as a child and got pregnant, he would not let her get an abortion. Contrast that with a child who got pregnant in the confines of a marriage, didn't want to get an abortion, and was forced to. Okay. That when this person left the Sea Org, she was able to sue Scientology for what she had been subjected to. And to the best of my knowledge, Scientology ended up settling with her for tens of millions of dollars. I mean, you couldn't have organizations that are more diametrically opposed than Scientology and however someone wants to describe what Charlie Kirk represented. But you'll still have someone like Grant Cardone sitting here being like, I got to find it again. Faith, family, friends. Unbelievable. Okay. The Second Amendment issue. If a Scientologist were found to be concealed carrying legally inside of a church of Scientology, they would probably be declared a suppressive person. Pro-military. It's a very big issue for the conservative Christian right. You would think that Scientology would be pro-military, considering they parade around L. Ron Hubbard's service in the Navy as if it's one of the most virtuous things L. Ron Hubbard ever did. Scientologists are practically prohibited from joining the military. It is strange how anti-military Scientology is, considering the experience of L. Ron Hubbard. Now, L. Ron Hubbard had a pretty lousy career in the Navy, but that's not what Scientology tells you. There was a kid who grew up with me in Scientology in Philadelphia. And by the time he finished high school, he wanted to join the military. And I remember this was a huge deal. And when I say deal, I mean problem. In Scientology, they would call it a flap. This was a huge flap. His name was Peter Battershaw. His dad was Jeff Battershaw, who had been the executive director of the Philadelphia Scientology org. His mom was Sharon Battershaw. She had been a longtime Philadelphia staff member. They were good people. Peter wanted to join the military. He wanted to join the Marines. He was called in to the org to be handled on not joining the military. Now you might go, why? Why would Scientology care about this? Because in the aims of Scientology, as written by L. Ron Hubbard, it says the aims of Scientology are a civilization without war. So how can you as an organization say that your goal is a civilization, not a country, but a civilization without war, but your members are signing up to fight wars? Now you might go, well, the best way to prevent a war is with a giant army, because then nobody would ever want to go to war with you. That's not how Scientology thinks about it at all. And Scientology also says, you know, one of the biggest problems with having their members join the military is the chance that those members will be assigned to some branch of military intelligence. Now that's a big problem for Scientology, because Scientology is unbelievably paranoid about being infiltrated by any of the many various branches of U.S. intelligence. I mean, literally, you can be a second generation born and raised Sea Org member, and you can wind up being interrogated as to whether you are a plant sent in to bring down Scientology from the inside by the U.S. intelligence services. And so Peter Battershaw did end up joining the military, and he did end up joining the Marines. And so, like I said practically prohibited from joining the military. Scientology is so paranoid about its members having anything to do with military intelligence that if one of its members ends up being involved in any branch of military intelligence, they are prohibited from receiving Scientology auditing for the rest of this lifetime. Now, to a Scientologist who believes in future lifetimes, that might not sound like a huge deal, but add on top of that the fact that most Scientologists would tell you that if you are prohibited from engaging in Scientology auditing for the rest of this lifetime, then there's no point continuing on with this lifetime. You should just drop the body, pick up a new body, start over, so that you can do more Scientology as soon as possible. Yeah. So I remember the way that it was settled, where, because Peter really wanted to join the Marines, and like I said, he did, was he had to basically put in writing, he had basically had to do a test in writing. He had to promise that he would never allow himself to be positioned or stationed, or I don't know what the word is in the military, in anything to do with intelligence. So joining the military and being in the military does not disqualify you from participating in Scientology auditing, but being in any branch of military intelligence does. And so imagine that you've got L. Ron Hubbard, who Scientology will never shut the hell up about how prestigious and patriotic his Navy service was. And yet to all Scientologists in the world, they're told, oh my God, no, it's terrible if you join the military. Like even the Navy, you'd think maybe Scientology would have a soft spot for the Navy. Like maybe you could at least join the Navy because L. Ron Hubbard was in the Navy. Nope. Actually, the Marines are a part of the Navy. Nope. Yeah. So when the title is Let's Talk About Charlie Kirk and Scientology, to me, Charlie Kirk represents the sector of American politics that Scientology has been pretty effective in infiltrating by pretending to be like them. And I just wish that the people who represent that sector of American politics would somehow truly understand what Scientology really is, what they really believe, what they really stand for, what they really think about people like you, because Scientology, has been able to benefit so greatly from convincing those, the people I'm talking about, that somehow Scientology is worth defending. And I wonder if they would feel that way if they truly understood what Scientologists believe. What do you guys think? It's very easy, especially when we're talking about politicians and politics and political parties. Money pretty much gets you everywhere, So if you've got Trish Duggan and she's donating tens of millions of dollars to, political causes on the right, is anybody really going to care what Trish Duggan believes about, or what, whether Trish Duggan is financially supporting a cult that takes its clergy members to the abortion clinic every week? I don't know. Yeah. Those are pretty much some of my thoughts, you guys. It's funny because immigration has been such an issue in the news, right? Do you guys know there is not an organization in the entire country that brings in more people on religious worker visas than Scientology? I think someone actually ran the numbers on this. And it's partly because it's easier for Scientology to recruit Scientologists in other, foreign countries like Eastern Europe and South America. No other organization in the entire country uses the religious workers program more than Scientology. Isn't that remarkable? Especially for an organization that is as small as Scientology is. There's maybe 10 or 15,000 Scientologists at most in the entire United States, and they still manage to bring in more people on R1 visas than any other organization or group or church in the entire country. All right, let's look at some of these starred questions or comments and see what we're working with. Cara Feeble, I think Grant Cardone is the only one, and he just bought a ticket to the table. So yeah, no, Grant Cardone is not the only one. Greta Van Susteren, her husband, John P. Cole, Grant and Elena, Bob Duggan and Trish Duggan. Bob Duggan and Trish Duggan, they're divorced now, but together they are, it's Bob's money, but they are the richest Scientologists ever, except maybe Adnan Khashoggi. Is Adnan Khashoggi the Middle Eastern arms dealer? Adnan Khashoggi's wife was in Scientology. I wonder how rich Adnan was. Well, let me just Google this real quick. Jamal Khashoggi was the reporter that was chopped up, right? I think Adnan was his relative. Adnan Khashoggi, a Saudi businessman and arms dealer. Yes, known for his business dealings, extensive geopolitical influence, and opulent lifestyle. That's right. Adnan's wife was a Scientologist. And I think later they divorced, and ironically, his Scientologist wife then ended up in a same-sex relationship with, was it Carol Kingsley or Debbie Mace? All sorts of soap opera stuff. Adnan Khashoggi net worth. Let's see if Adnan was richer than Bob Duggan is now. $4 billion. Okay. If Adnan Khashoggi, I wonder if Scientology would have taken credit for Adnan Khashoggi being a Scientologist. His wife absolutely was. I don't know if Adnan himself did Scientology or if he just allowed his wife to. Let me see. Yeah. His wife actually lived in the penthouse of the Fort Harrison for a long time. Did you guys know that? It's totally true. Okay, so other than Adnan, the possibility, Bob Duggan is the richest Scientologist, and he has donated, by this point, close to $500 million to Scientology. And Trish is one of the largest donors to various Republican groups here in Florida, and I believe probably on a national level as well. So not just Grant Cardone. Okay, Adam Carmona. Scientologists don't really believe in the cross, but they definitely believe in the double cross. I like that one. Good one, Adam. Okay, Denny Sue. Most people don't know anything about Scientology. They certainly don't know anything about the Sea organization. That's true. It's funny though. It's not like Grant Cardone is shy or quiet about talking about Scientology. Now, he's not shouting it from every rooftop in every podcast and every episode, but he publicly talks about it, and he's talked about it on some of the biggest platforms that he's been on. And it's like, I don't expect your average, never in Scientologist Christian to care that much about Scientology. But if you really, really, really think that it is important, as I feel Charlie Kirk did, like the culture war. And again, I don't think the culture war is important. I don't. But Charlie Kirk and his people did. So when I see Charlie Kirk on stage with Grant Cardone, first of all, Charlie's only there because he's being paid. He knows the reason that he's being paid is because his presence on that stage is going to impart a certain amount of credibility to Grant Cardone in at least the eyes of Charlie Kirk's audience, right? You know, the reason Grant Cardone wants Charlie Kirk on stage with him is because Grant Cardone wants credibility and clout with people who think being on stage with Charlie Kirk gives you credibility and clout, right? So Charlie Kirk knows that he's being paid money because Grant Cardone is receiving something of value by being associated with Charlie Kirk. So if you truly think that, you know, that what the culture war represents to you is important, and that family values is important, and that faith is important, and that being pro-life is important, then wouldn't you care that you're imparting that credibility to someone who supports an organization as evil and destructive of Scientology? Is it just my chronic naivete and optimism that allows me to believe that people like Charlie Kirk should care, would care, this political sphere would care? Or am I just being naive? Because I grew up in a cult. Okay, Kara says, does Greta even have a platform now? Yeah, Greta's probably one of the highest paid people on Newsmax. I'm never quite sure if Newsmax is a cable news channel, or if it's a website, or if it's a YouTube channel, or if it's all of those. But does it get more Republican than Newsmax? Like, isn't Newsmax like the new Fox? And Greta's like their number one person. She's like one of the most famous, most long-term, most influential Scientologists. And somehow she's convinced the Newsmax folks that she's one of them. That's why it's like, I'm like, how is this possible? Don't these people know what Scientologists actually believe? You know, is it all about the money, or are they actually being duped? I don't know. Okay, let's see. Dun, 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 dun. Angel of Thunder. Historically, Scientologists all vote conservative and pose as a religion. Historically, I would disagree with you. No, I can't. I don't have some statistics that I can point you to. I can tell you that in my whole time in Scientology, I never heard a Scientologist give a damn about politics until 2016. Oh, so I guess the only part of your comment that I'm disagreeing with is historically. I don't consider 2016 to be historically. I consider that to be modernity. Historically, I would say most Scientologists probably didn't bother voting. I would probably tell you that Scientologists I think Scientologists project Scientology into their politics. Wait, I got to make this right. I think Scientologists who grew up in like liberal, progressive, Democrat households see their political values in Scientology. I think they project their politics onto Scientology. And then I think Scientologists who grew up in like, you know, conservatives, Republican households see their politics reflected in Scientology. Scientology is relatively apolitical. I'm saying that from firsthand experience. You might have other Scientologists who have different opinions about this, but I grew up in it. I was steeped in it. L. Ron Hubbard did not take sides on the political aisle. He said, forget civilization, forget society. We're building a new one. He's like, don't think you're going to get anyone voting Scientology into popularity. We are not looking to gain approval from civilization or we're building a whole new society. We're not looking to get approval. We're not going to be voted in, right? Anyway, Ren again says, when a cult is working on legitimizing, they try to align with the side when they're going to get the best cover, such as the religious aspect of the right. I think that is legit. I think that's a valid take. Let's see. Yes, I was going to mention John Mappin earlier. It's that because John Mappin isn't an American and doesn't live in America, I decided to leave him out of the conversation. But John Mappin is like sort of the fun. I feel like the words that work is like the fundamentalist Scientologist conservative of the UK. You know what's funny? I've been meaning to do a video about this, but it never rises to the top of my list. You guys know that me and Andrew Gold used to do a lot of content together back when he would do a lot of Scientology content. And then when Andrew visited Tampa or Clearwater, we actually did a podcast interview recorded right here in my studio. So Andrew's sort of like, Andrew Gold's pretty firmly an anti-Scientologist. Andrew texted me a number of weeks ago. He goes, I think I've made a mistake. And I go, oh. He goes, I think I accidentally interviewed a Scientologist. And I go, who the hell did you interview? He goes, do you know a guy named John Mappin? I'm like, oh my God, he's like the craziest Scientologist ever. You interviewed John Mappin? And he's like, oh man, I really stepped into it this time. I can't believe this. And I'm like, he's not just a Scientologist. He's like the craziest super Scientologist ever. And he's like, John has this freaking castle here in the UK. He calls it Camelot. And the government is like trying to force him to fill up his castle with illegal immigrants. And he reached out to me and I'm like, oh my God. And he's like, I was interviewing him and he started to say some stuff that sounded very Scientology. And he's like, and I almost asked him in the interview, are you a Scientologist? And I didn't. And he's like, I am going to get so roasted for accidentally interviewing a Scientologist after all the anti-Scientology stuff that I've done. And I'm like, do you want me to do a video about it? And I'm like, what do you want me to do? He's like, I don't know. And so I've actually been meaning to do a video about it. And I haven't. Okay. But anyway, because you mentioned John Mappin. Okay, let's talk about John Mappin. Venus Blue Crash Baddie says, when asked at the launch event to reveal who funds Turning Point UK, John Mappin, a Scientologist who owns a castle in Cornwall and is one of the key figures behind the group, answered, well, the whole idea is, oh, wait, is this only part of a comment? Oh, did you run out of characters? Oh, I'm sorry. So John Mappin is one of the #1 funders of Turning Point UK. Is that what I'm to understand here? George, if you find a follow-up, if there's a part 2 to that comment, I'll revisit it. Okay, let's see. Okay, Nicole Zarnecki says, Angelo, Scientology votes populist. Aaron, I've had problems with Greta, and I already knew that she and her husband are Scientologists. I didn't know that they are high-level Scientologists. Greta Van Susteren and her husband are both OT8s. That's as high as it gets. And they are such trusted, dedicated Scientologists that David Miscavige had his own mother work for Greta and her husband, John. David Miscavige's own mother worked for Greta. That is how trusted Greta was. And actually, even Jenna Miscavige, she, because when Jenna was little and she was in the Sea Org here in Clearwater, Florida, on the rare occasion that she would get a day off, she would go with her grandma, David Miscavige's mother, and they would go out on Greta's boat, Greta and her husband John's boat. Jenna has memories of hanging out with Greta's husband, John Cole. That's how trusted Greta and John are. Okay. Let's see. Life on the streets. Scientology is not about God. It's a business and it's about money. Totally true. Gabrielle, escaping the cultiverse. Scientology has mastered the art of extreme deception. That is a perfect description. Okay. Venus Blue, Crash Patty. John Mappin is a huge funder of Turning Point UK. Yeah. Now it's almost like, let me think about this. Yeah. I gotta think about that a little more. Ramble On says, if they are big donors, then any political party will ignore the facts. I think that is totally correct as well. Juliana Burgess, I don't think Republicans know how sinister Scientology is. Charlie Kirk would welcome. I don't know if that was a full thought there. Angel of Thunder, Cardone is such a wannabe pretender. He's so cringe. He is so fake. He is such a charlatan. I mean, everything about the guy is fake. Guys, he's a fake billionaire. The guy, I mean, who runs around pretending to be a billionaire? I mean, the truth is, in the manosphere, there's a lot of people that go around pretending to be sort of fake billionaires, but okay. Tiffany Lane. I grew up in a very, very evangelical and conservative branch of Christianity. We didn't know anything about Scientology, but we didn't like them because Scientology doesn't love Jesus. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Lena on Me says, no, they don't care. I've been a part of the GOP my entire adult life. I know many that have gotten abortions, and we have many ministry leaders in my state alone indicted for child SA. Okay. So yeah. But you don't even think they would care that Scientology, like, what about this whole thing of you can be a Scientologist and be a Christian? Is that not so fundamentally abhorrent and offensive to evangelicals? Actually, I should ask you this. Was Charlie Kirk considered an evangelical? Let me, I know you guys love it when I consult Grok. Let me ask Grok. Is Charlie evangelical? I guess I don't even know. I guess I have this idea. Even as I say it, it sounds obviously false. That evangelical just means like really, really, really Christian. Like, are there certain, like if you're Baptist, are you automatically evangelical? Was Charlie Kirk, like, I guess I thought evangelical just meant like you really, really, really believe. Yes, Charlie Kirk was evangelical. Okay. What is the difference between an evangelical Christian and a non-evangelical Christian? Primarily their beliefs, practices, and approach to faith. Core beliefs, practices, cultural identity. I don't know. It all sounds the same to me. All right. I'm not going to sit here and make you guys watch me read all that. Let's see. Farrell says, of course, Grant Cardone made it all about himself. Yuck. Jenny, this is ridiculous. I was no fan of Charlie, but trying to profit off of his death is insane. Are you talking about Grant just promoting stuff? Mrs. Bramlett Jr. says Greta Van Sustren's husband, who's also a Scientologist, is serving in the White House as deputy assistant to the president and deputy special presidential envoy for Ukraine. John P. Cole is his name. Yep. I guess where my I guess I'm still hung up on this point, right? So whatever evangelical Christian family values Republicans Greta and her husband are closest with, I just feel like if those people were presented with the information of like, okay, so you know that John and Greta are high-level OT8 long-term, like 40-year plus Scientologists, right? And they'd probably be like, oh, yes, of course. Scientology is a wonderful multicultural, multi-faith institution, and they're wonderful people. And you go, well, that's fine. That's great. I'm sure Greta and John are wonderful people. But you do know that like the members of Scientology's clergy, that Scientology has like weekly shuttles to take their clergy members to the abortion clinic, right? Like, you know that, right? And they'd be like, no, that couldn't possibly be true. And you're like, no. Like, I promise you it's true. And they'd be like, that couldn't possibly be true. And you're like, but if it were true, would it matter? I just feel like those people would be like, it would kind of matter. I don't know. Okay, let's see. Where was I? Oh, this is interesting. Kevin Conklin says, I've tried to Google where Charlie said he would debate a Scientologist if anyone would debate him. Grant Cardone donated to the RNC, and Grant exploited this to make it look like he and Charlie were pals. You are totally correct, Kevin. You are totally correct. Another example of what you're talking about. First of all, if there's a clip of Charlie saying he would debate a Scientologist, please someone send that to me. It reminds me of when I went on the Lex Friedman podcast, and he had just received word that he was going to be allowed to interview both Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. And at one, he told me that privately. He didn't say that. Before we went on air, he said, just so you know, he just told me he had just received word. He was like blown out of his mind. And in the interview that I did with Lex, he's like, I think I could get, I want to get David Miscavige to come on as an interview. And I basically laughed in his face. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen. And you know, he's like, no, I think it could. I'm like, well, I mean, look, I would love to be wrong. I said, but let me explain it to you this way, Lex. Not only will you not get David Miscavige, not only will you not even get an official spokesperson for Scientology willing to come on with you, you won't even get a Scientologist willing to come on with you because they're not allowed. They're not allowed. It's too dangerous. They're not allowed to engage in dialogue about Scientology abuse. They're not allowed to acknowledge that David Miscavige has ever done anything wrong. They're not allowed to acknowledge the existence or the content of the confidential levels. And they're not allowed to even engage in a platform where such things are being discussed. And he goes, I think you're wrong. I said, I'm not wrong. And to this day, any Scientologist should practically be willing to kill to go onto Lex Friedman's platform. To this day, he's never been able to book an interview with a Scientologist. And I even said to him, I said, you know, the only Scientologist you might be able to get on here is Grant Cardone because he's a social media whore, but he will shut down any discussion about Scientology. I said, you should ask for Grant Cardone to come on. And he said, who's Grant Cardone? And I said, who's Grant Cardone? My pearls. I can't wait to tell you all about him. And me and Lex sat there and talked shit about Grant Cardone for 20 minutes. And Lex cut the whole damn thing out of the podcast. Damn it, Lex. So then when I went on with Andy Stumpf on the Cleared Hot podcast, I actually flew up to Montana. Actually, Andy flew me out to Montana to go on the Cleared Hot podcast with Andy. And we talked shit about Grant Cardone. And I told him, I'm like, you know, I spoke about all this with Lex and he cut it out. And he's like, Lex is a coward. I felt like I was getting away with murder by talking smack about Grant Cardone for like 20 minutes on the Lex Friedman podcast. In the back of my mind, I was like, if Lex leaves this in, I will have gotten away with murder. No, he cut it out. He cut it out. I think I distracted myself from my own story. Not only did Grant use his donations, right? So like Grant paid Charlie Kirk to come on that stage with him, and he only had 45 minutes. Grant paid Trump millions of dollars to come on stage with him for like 30 minutes. But he does that with everyone. Grant paid Tom Brady. It was either $2 or $4 million just to come on stage with him for a little bit. One of Grant's biggest coups, other than literally paying the then former president to come on stage with him, was Grant spoke. I think Trump was holding a rally in Madison Square Garden or something. And Grant was one of the speakers at the rally. And you might go, oh my God, Grant is so trusted. He was invited. No. Grant paid like $250,000 to be allowed to speak at that event. Grant will never tell you that. But I sort of feel that even those people really just don't give a damn about Grant. They just got paid a shitload of money. I mean, hell, Megyn Kelly has done multiple podcasts and interviews shitting all over Scientology. Megyn Kelly interviewed Mike Rinder twice and talked about Scientology being satanic. And Megyn Kelly still accepted an appearance fee to appear on stage with Grant Cardone and speak at one of his 10X growth conferences. I put her on blast for that as well. It's like, do you guys pretend to stand for so much and you really stand for nothing? You pretend to stand for so much and at the end of the day, you stand for nothing. At least in those scenarios. Okay, back to the comments. Gabrielle says Scientology has always aligned itself with other religions. I think they use religious and political leaders to legitimize their cult. It's all smoke and mirrors. I mean, you're totally correct. It's just like Herbalife paying people to be their spokesperson and sponsoring the LA Galaxy and all that kind of stuff. Like Herbalife is a pyramid scheme that preys on low income people and foreigners to prop up their pyramid scheme. But good luck convincing everyone that Herbalife is a pyramid scheme when, you know, they've got Nobel laureates speaking for them and the LA Galaxy. David Beckham has an Herbalife jersey. You know, it's like Scientology, the Herbalife of religions. All right, let's see. I'm not sure what that one means. Anne from Massachusetts. L. Ron Hubbard was, in my opinion, a complete and utter fraud. Plus, he wasn't a very good author. It amazes me that he was able to pull off this whole Scientology scam. There are so many examples in the present day. I mean, I guess Scientology exists in the present day. There are so many examples that I have observed recently in society where I just go, oh my God, there's just a certain percentage of people who can literally be convinced of anything. And that Scientology isn't even close to the craziest shit people have been convinced to believe. And you know, I it's a very common question people ask, like, what is it about Scientology that attracts anybody at all? And you go, well, the introductory, the lower levels of Scientology are very self-helpy. They're very Tony Robbins-ish. They're very, you can accomplish anything with the right tools. Nothing can hold you back. And it's like, that's not crazy at all to get people to believe self-help stuff. And that's why Scientologists will like rush to explain to you how Scientology is not a faith. It's not a traditional religion the way you think of religion. And, you know, it's really about common sense tools to help you in life. And it's like, I mean, geez, what's the total addressable, market in the self-help empowerment space? And what's actually amazing is that Scientology is managing to fail. That's actually what's remarkable. It is so easy to sell people bullshit that in this day and age, what's incredible about Scientology is that it's failing. It's shrinking. It gets smaller every day. That's actually what's incredible. Not that anybody ever believed in it in the first place, but that they can't succeed in getting more people faster than they lose the people they already have. This is funny. I have to think about this one. My dogma was run over by my karma. That's such a great phrase. I love that. Did you come up with that, or is that from something? I love that. Good to see you, John. Adam Carmona, Scientology has Manson family values. That's great. That's right. The family values religion, more like the Manson family values religion. Old Frizz says, the thought of having to come back again fills me with horror. Just let me rest in peace. That's funny. Farrell Cheryl, yes, Scientology fathers are great at throwing away their daughters. Yes. Yeah, that was Cheryl's experience for sure. Sahib Dillon, can someone on here tell me if Tom Cruise is still friends with David Miscavige? I think the answer is yes. Definitely still friends with David Miscavige. Gabrielle, a Scientologist motto is, the cult is all above family and everything else. Some may see this as being fully dedicated to the religion. Yeah. Terry H, it's always blown me away that Greta is a Scientologist. She's an attorney. It's not like she has been cloistered somewhere, unable to figure things out. I know. I wish I knew. I don't think I've ever heard the story of how Greta got into Scientology. She was not born and raised in it. She was already a Scientologist by the time she became famous from her, I believe she got famous from her coverage of the O.J. Simpson trial. I know she was already a Scientologist at that time. See, one of the big problems for Scientology when it came to Greta Van Susteren is that, remember when I said that if you've ever had anything to do with military intelligence, you're disqualified from ever getting Scientology auditing for the rest of this lifetime? That is also true if you are a journalist, particularly a high-profile journalist like Greta Van Susteren. So like a Barbara Walters, for example, would never technically be allowed to join Scientology. She would be called an illegal pre-clear. I mean, she's not much of a journalist today, but back in her heyday, she was a journalist, right? I'm just using her as an example of a very famous journalist. Technically, a Barbara Walters would not be allowed to be a Scientologist. So Greta started her life as a Scientologist as an attorney, to the best of my knowledge, not as a journalist. And so it became a bit of like, uh-oh, what do we do with this one? Technically, Greta's an illegal PC. Technically, Greta's not allowed to get auditing. Exceptions were made for Greta Van Susteren. There is also, to the best of my knowledge, not any other single Scientologist in the world who is a high-profile journalist for the very reason that I'm giving you. Like, it's not allowed. And so, yeah, so she started her life as a Scientologist as a lawyer, and I've literally never heard the story of how she joined Scientology. She sure as hell doesn't like to talk about it, does she? How in the world has the media empire and even Greta was at Fox News forever, right? How has the media empire, the Republican empire, the Fox News empire let Greta get away with never answering up for Scientology? Unbelievable to me. Well, whenever they're ready to cancel her, I'm sure it'll be at the top of the talking points list. SP Wog, haven't seen you in a while, SP Wog. Aaron, thank you for this sharing open discussion. My pleasure. And Dancing with Ghosts. I like that name. Do you think those crazy Marty Rathman videos where he calls out Mike Rinder are accurate now? At the time, everyone thought he was crazy, just curious. Well, he is crazy. I mean, the truth is, Marty Ruffman isn't crazy. He's just being paid to say what he says. I mean, what did Marty say about, like, the thing? There's a lot of stuff you could criticize Mike for. I criticize Mike for having lied about covering up child sex abuse. I criticize Mike for covering up the information about a 2-year look back window in California where people could sue Scientology. But there's nothing Marty criticized Mike for that was actually valid. I mean, Marty basically said everyone was lying. Yeah, and so the truth is, the crazy videos that Marty did criticizing Mike were not actually valid. He did not criticize Mike for valid things. He's like, they were all lying. They all made it up. It was all, David Miscavige is great. Scientology is great. You know, so, but I appreciate the question. Dancing with Ghosts. All right, guys. I think I've said everything I had to say about this subject for now. And I don't expect I'll be revisiting this. I've already done so many videos trying to expose Scientology's hypocrisy for latching on to the conservative, evangelical, Christian, family values wing of the Republican Party. Not because I'm offended, right? I just can't believe anyone's falling for it, you know? And it's not like I think these videos, doing videos about this, I don't think actually makes an impact. I like talking about it. Meaning, like, am I getting this message out to is this message reaching anyone? Like, is this message getting out to people in a way and at a level where it's actually going to affect Scientologists' ability to continue to fool these people? I don't really think so. So I don't do a lot of videos about it, but Abigail, yes, I was going to text you earlier today. Abigail C. went out to Aaron. I got a notification that your gifts were delivered today. Did you get them? Obviously, it's super early, so I'm hoping you hold off until your birthday to open them, or did you already? Abigail, here's the problem. People send me Amazon gifts, or not gifts, like from like my protest wish lists, my protest supplies wish lists of chalk and spray chalk and stuff. I get a lot of Amazon boxes sent to me. So there's no way for me to know what's in the box until I open the box. So I did open it today. And thank you very much. Good to see you, Abigail. Feels like it's been a little while. All right, everyone. That's it for this video. And that is it for me for tonight. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on the replay crew. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe